with no hearts and sunshine. We can't do it all now. God, I'm side by side, we'll go by, stepping stone to the journey becomes our home. Oh, oh.
Thank you, James. Good morning, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the South Fork. This is a shared ministry. Our Reverend Kimberly Quinn Johnson offers more than half of our services. On days when she's not here, the services are created by our worship team, and we're always open to your suggestions. My name is Mark Potter. Today, we are honored to have Michel Dobbs lead our service. Michel is a Zen priest with our local Ocean Zendo, which sits right here in this room on Saturday mornings. And when they do, they set up facing the east through those doors. Tried to figure out a way to do that this morning, and I just couldn't quite handle it with this cord here, which isn't long enough to to make that the front. I think the people that originally built the meeting house actually created a spot where we could plug in there, but we actually have never activated it. Michel began practicing Zen with the New York City Sangha of the late Kyudo Nakagawa Roshi in 1992. He was ordained in 2001 and received Dharma transmission in 2005. Today, as citizens of the 21st century, we consider the place of ceremony and ritual in our lives. As Unitarian Universalists, we affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every being. We honor each person's search for truth and meaning. We encourage peace, compassion, equity, and justice for all. We remember the Native Americans, which European farmers, our ancestors, pushed off this land. And we remember the people captured in Africa, brought in chains to work this land, and then released to a freedom haunted with terror and injustice. We are committed to healing the pain of our past and of our present. In our actions outside of these walls, we help those in need, the homeless, the hungry, the marginalized, recognizing that the whole world is our neighbor, whom we are called to love. Here in our worship together, the rituals we practice and the songs we sing elevate these commitments that bind us as a community. Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are on your life's journey, whatever your name for the sacred, you are very welcome to bring your full self here. You probably noticed a few elements of our layout which are different. This is the Soto Zen altar, and these are the mats which Engo will show us in a few minutes, and where Engi will show us a few of the rituals of the Zen Buddhist practice. Special thanks to musician James Underberg and our tech hosts, Carl and Kent Martin and Anastasia Gucknor. You can find more information about how to connect to events this week in your e-bulletin and on the events calendar on your website. If you have announcements for our e-bulletin, please get them to our administrator by Tuesday. This morning, Martha Potter, the president of our board, has a few announcements.
Good morning. One ritual I've taken on is the first Sunday of every month. I just let you know what the board is doing. It seems like the first Sunday of every month, that my husband is always the worship associate and I'm always here. We'll have to change that a little bit. Okay, I see most of us are Ocean Zendo today, but you can listen to the announcements anyway. Maybe you'll join us on another day. My first announcement is that we need hospitality and greeters. Ken Etlinger and I have been volunteering week after week, and it would be nice if other people can join us. And if you don't worried about how to do it, we'd be glad to train you. Another thing is our Care and Connection team is a small group of people that does a big job, and they could use some other people working with them as well. Contact Pam Wittenberg or Carol Mason if you'd like to join the Care and Connection team. We had a leadership council on January 14th, and we discussed what was going well with our community, and a lot is going well, and the challenges that we face. And one thing we discovered that is we need new leadership. So anybody who's interested in becoming a leader, which is not a big job in our congregation, but it means taking on a task, please see me and let me know, or see Pam Wittenberg and let her know, if you can help us. And if you are interested in finding how to become a member, I've been talking to people after service, and just get, say, I'd like to talk to you about it. We are a dynamic community that always looking for new ideas. So let anybody know if you have any new and innovative ideas to make us wonderful. Thank you.
Do we have visitors this morning who would like to introduce themselves? Hi. Hi. Naomi and Tora. Thank you. Soren. And if you're visiting on Zoom, please sign our virtual guest book using the link in the chat. Someone from our Care and Connection team will be in touch with you. Those on Zoom will find today's order of service, including the lyrics to the hymns we will be singing together, posted in your chat. And this morning, I will light the candle, and Michelle will light the incense for us. Yesterday, our distant ancestors gathered round a flame to share their stories and find comfort. Tomorrow, our descendants will gather around flames, talking of a life we will never know. But today, it is we who gather here around these flames, seeking, believing, and being together. Please rise as you're willing and able to sing hymn number 361, Enter, Rejoice, and Come In.
Victor rejoice in the main. Victor rejoice in the main. Song. Open your ears to the song. The day will be a joyful day. Hearts, everyone. Open your hearts, everyone. There will be a joyful day. Be afraid of some change. Don't be afraid of some change. Today will be a joyful day. Rejoice in the day. Rejoice in the day.
So today we're lucky enough to have children present, and I wrote a story for them. Once upon a time, not many years ago, there was a bird who lived nearby in the Noyak woods. Now, this bird was a small brown bird, not much bigger than a boy's fist. Can I see a boy's fist? Would you hold up your fist? That's how big, I'm not a child, but that's how big that fist was. Now, and the bird. Now, people who know told me that that small bird was a wren. And wrens like to live in the bushes near houses. That's why some wrens are called house wrens. But this wren was different. He had a thin white band, like a headband, made out of the white feathers on his face. That's why the people who know called him a Carolina wren. We'll just call him Carolina. Carolina was hatched from the very first egg his mother laid that year. He was the oldest in his family. And of course, being the oldest, he was the first of his brothers and sisters to learn to fly. And when the others learned to fly, he was able to show them the wisteria, which was the best place to sit and sing for the people who lived in the house, and how to pick the aphids out of the bush rose, and where to look in the garden for the fattest bugs and spiders. Carolina was very important. All his brothers and sisters looked up to him, but he was not happy. He saw the big robins on the lawn stab into the grass with their beaks and pull huge worms right out of the ground like magicians. One of these worms was big enough to feed a wren for the entire day. How did they do that? He saw tree swallows sweep through the air to pick off 1, 2, 3, sometimes more mosquitoes flying faster and higher than Carolina had ever tried to fly. And he saw hummingbirds, smaller even than he was, which is smaller than a child's fist, dressed like iridescent jewels, sipping nectar from flowers, while Carolina had to hop around the ground, dressed in brown, with only the single white headband to make him look fancy. It did not make sense to him. As soon as Carolina could fly around for himself, his parents went to work improving their nest. His father sat beside the nest while his mother gathered strips of bark and small branches, which his father wove into the old nest to fix the roof and add an entry ramp. While his mother was out gathering material, his father sat on a branch next to the nest and sang. Was that song so important? When his parents found a log busy with ants, crickets, and termites, they hopped up and down 3 times before they jumped in to gather insects. Why 3 times? When his father sang, it always seemed the same. To eat, to eat, to eat. Pause, and then again, to eat, to eat, to eat. Sometimes he would make a kind of chatter, but he came back to the same old song. As the summer went on and his mother and father hatched more and more brothers and sisters fluttering around the garden, Carolina began to hunt for bugs further away from the house. He knew there had to be something different. When the robins arrived on the lawn, he joined them. He cocked his head the way they do, and although he wasn't sure why, and then he would stab into the grass the way they do, but never once did he find a worm. The hummingbirds were more his size, but when he flew up to the sunflower blossom, he couldn't see what they were eating, and he couldn't hover long enough to find any insects. When the swallows appeared high above the trees, he tried to follow them, but it took him so long to flutter up halfway that they had disappeared by then, and he was totally exhausted. He would never fly like a swallow. And when he came down from so high in the trees, he didn't recognize where he was. He was at a different house with windows and a garden, just like his parents' house. But this house had camellias, a giant butterfly bush, and bird feeders. By now it was fall, and a flock of chickadees were at the feeder. They were just his size, and it seemed to be very happy flying back and forth to the feeder, eating whatever it was in there for them. But when Carolina flew up to the bird feeder, all he could find was safflower seed. He needed soft insects, not hard, tough safflower seed. That winter, he went back to the old logs and leaves to find the larvae and cocoons with insects. And when it warmed up, there were ants and termites in the rotten logs. By spring, he was getting very lonely. All the other birds, animals, and insects had woken up and thawed out and seemed happy meeting each other and feeding together. But Carolina had found no one else to be a friend. In May, a new bird arrived. She was brown like Carolina, about the same size, and also hopped around the ground under the bushes, searching for insects. This new bird was a hermit thrush. Early that evening, the hermit thrush flew up into a tree and called with a voice like a flute, more beautiful than anything Carolina had ever heard. But when Carolina tried it, the hermit thrush snickered and flew away, headed to the hardwood forest in the North Country. Carolina went to sleep that night, very, very sad. Not many days after that, the garden had another visitor. This new bird landed on the other side of the holly bush, so it was hard for Carolina to see, but there was something familiar about this visitor. She was brown and small, about the size of a child's fist. Carolina cocked his head and waited. Soon enough, the new bird fluttered over to a rotten log, hopped 3 times, and began to pick at the log for insects. What was more amazing was that bird had a white headband above her eyes. When Carolina saw that, he fluttered up into the butterfly bush and called just like his father, to eat, to eat, to eat. Sure enough, she had seen him fly into the bush, and when she heard him, she flew up into the butterfly bush to join him. She was lonely too, and she liked everything about him, the way he fluttered, the way he called, and the way he hopped 3 times before chasing insects. Within the next few days, Carolina was perched on a branch beside a new nest, just like his father, carefully constructing it with branches and strips of bark his new mate brought to him. And while she was out gathering more material, he just sat next to the nest and called, to eat, to eat, to eat. He had a friend, and he knew just what to do to keep her close to him. May your roots grow deep, may your branches spread far, may you find the world to be a wonderful place and leave it better for those who follow. So let's sing the children out to childcare with Kim. Of course, they're welcome to stay here to remain in the sanctuary too for the rest of the service. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the light of love surround you everywhere. Everywhere you may go. We support the work of this congregation through the gift of our time, our talents, and our treasure. Your financial contributions help to support the ongoing work of the congregation, including worship, religious exploration, and community care and connection. And your generosity is reflected in the ways that we are able to show up in our community for justice and service. Our Helping Hand Fund provides support to local organizations, and our Minister's Discretionary Fund provides support to individuals in immediate need. To contribute, you can use the baskets that will circulate. If you're online, you can use the link in your chat or scan the QR code in your order of service. And now we'll hear James with the offertory song.
Can you help me open to the music all around in the fleeting moments that are lost but can be found in the corners of awareness? There are hymns that can sustain us. Can you help me find that subtle sacred sound in the bright dawn colors flashing across the sky, in the warmth of friendship when it's cold and damp outside, in the little acts of service that remind us of our purpose? Can you help me find that subtle sacred sound? In the hazy night, there are stars shining bright, far above the clouds in the sky. And in the long, hard fight, there is hope for new life. Peace and justice spread far and wide. And when it all falls down, we find our way to the ground and rise up singing a new kind of song. Can you help me open to music all around in the fleeting moments that are lost but can be found in the corners of weirdness? There are hymns that can sustain us. Can you help me find that subtle sacred sound? Try a little bit of call and response here. So I'm going to sing a line and then invite you to sing it back to me, okay? It sounds like oh, oh, it sounds like hey, hey, ah, it sounds like oh, oh. It sounds like silence. It sounds like rain. Can you help me open to the music all around in the fleeting moments right now? In the corners of awareness, there are hymns that can't sustain us. Can you help me find that subtle, sacred sound?
Thank you for your offerings. Now is the time in our service when we share the deep joys, sorrows, and concerns of our hearts. Sing hymn number 318, We Would Be One. Oh, sorry.
Would be one as now we join singing our hymn of love. And we have to
So my first memory of ritual was the Lord's Prayer. My brothers and I recited it each night when our parents tucked us in for the night. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. As I approached adolescence, this left me thinking about heaven. Where exactly is it? Why can't we see it? How will everyone fit there? And this went on. My parents fit into our New England town as Congregationalists, but even these low church Protestants follow the ritual of communion. For Congregationalists, it was a tiny glass of grape juice and a square of Wonder Bread, about the size of your fingernail. I learned of these when I received my confirmation into the church. They represented somehow the body and blood of Christ. How could this be? For a 13-year-old, it was a true mystery. Did grown-ups really believe this? To make matters more confusing, I remember sitting in the balcony for a concert, and because it was a church, I suppose, the minister thought he should begin with a prayer. My father in the chorus, my mother may have been one of the bells in the bell choir. I was alone with my brothers in the balcony, and in any case, I was distracted, so I looked up to see if anyone else was praying. To my amazement, easily a third of the congregation was sitting up, looking around, not praying at all. This is when I discovered that others, even adults, shared my doubts about an all-seeing, all-knowing, all-loving creator. If he was up there or anywhere, it was not clear he was paying attention. And if he was not paying attention, why should we bother? And of course, back then, 70 years ago, we had no thought it might be a she. Ultimately, I worked my way into atheism. But you may notice I'm no longer 18 years old. And at times, my life felt a little like that steel ball rolling gently down through a pinball machine. We're the balls making our way to the bottom. We keep ourselves busy devising theories to give reason to our travels. Why we ricochet off one bumper or gently brush against another, or how a flipper rockets us out of control across the cabinet. If these events are not random, it is certainly true we have no control over many of them, and the theories we make up to explain them are only occasionally true, so they might as well be random. This is when a spiritual life became useful to me. As you all know, I'm pretty active here at the UU. Our opening words, our closing words, joys and concerns, our lighting the candle, are rituals that have become important to me. But I also sit zazen with the Ocean Zendo Sangha here on Monday evenings. And I marvel also at the Hebrew of my grandsons read in their bar mitzvahs. I have found that ritual is important to all of us. Just as the elegant framework of the DNA molecule brings symmetry to all living creatures, and the dynamics of wind and water carve the dunes, hills, and valleys of our landscape, our rituals bring order and symmetry to our lives. We see these rituals everywhere. And today, Michel will introduce us to the ritual and ceremony for some of the rituals and ceremonies of the Zen Buddhist tradition. Thank you, Michelle.
One of our rituals is sitting on the ground. So, here we go. Have this really handy microphone hold. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hello, hello. Good. One time I was in a higher event center, and someone described these robes as like a mindfulness strap. You know, because if you don't pay attention, you find yourself falling down a lot. And even if you do pay attention, sometimes you're paying attention to yourself falling down. And yeah. So is the sound okay? Okay, good. Oh, okay. When Mark asked me to come and speak about ceremony and ritual, I kind of chuckled to myself, because my teacher, my dear teacher, Muriel Roshi, Peter Matheson, used to describe himself as the worst priest in the history of Zen. And he wasn't really much for ritual. Although just sitting in Zazen like this is a ritual enactment in a way of being awake. And if we do it long enough, we hope that maybe it'll shake up something and we might actually stumble into being awake. When I visit other Zen centers, though, and see how sharp and beautiful their ceremonies and their rituals are, I'm reminded that, you know, we're really more of a Zen corner than a Zen center. And I'm reminded that honestly, we're Hastings in the bigger Zen world. We're kind of, and there, I'm always, you know, being adjusted by some young monk or something that helps, which I'm grateful for. And I wouldn't have it any other way. It's wonderful. So while I'm not up to the task of speaking about ceremony and ritual, nevertheless, here I am. So, and here we all are. So I'm glad to be here with you, and thank you all for being here, for taking this time to come together. And I think that in a way, ceremony and ritual, in the sense of creating community, are really important to us, and probably more important now that we've lived through the past 3 years than they've ever been, you know. And continuing to do those things is important and vital work. So I think if Zen practice could be described as having a goal, which we tend not to do, you know, we try to discourage people a little bit. And so we don't tell them that there's any goals to Zen practice. In fact, there's famous Zen teachers who say things like Zen is good for nothing, you know, and it actually is good for nothing, but if it can be said to have a goal, though, I would say it's to awaken to the oneness of life. To see, we so often live in the dream of separation, that we're individuals and we're not connected to each other or to the world or to, not even to ourselves often, you know. And so this practice of slowing down coming together and following these certain forms that aren't right. They're not correct or anything, like no one, but they're the ways that we move together as a community and that we actually start to learn and be the one body. That's the one body completely connected. And a lot of the times it's not, it can be talked about. We just sang a beautiful song about, you know, being the one body, more or less. And it can be talked about, but our minds are the culprit of keeping us in this dream of separation often. They perceive the world as distinct things outside of me, which I might be able to manipulate to get things to go my way, you know, or give me pleasure, or if they're not giving me pleasure, push them away, you know. So trying to work with the mind is tricky, and Zen is a beautiful form in that it's embodied. The forms and rituals that we practice in the Zendo are really to pay attention and follow one another. It's like the most basic instruction, but it's the only instruction. You know, pay attention to what everyone else is doing and then follow, you know, follow along. Try, no one, so all of these things like robes and shaving our heads and sitting in Zazen and the ways that we walk in Kinhin, all of those things are to embody the one body, to actually be this connection that we are, you know, but that we often think ourselves out of. So it's a felt experience, and we have to do it over and over again because the mind in the interim kicks in and goes, hey, you know what I'd like to get, you know, or it would be really good if things were the way that I wanted them to be today. So we have to come back and do it again and again and again to break these habits that we have. And you know, if you turn on television, it's so funny because people watch television completely differently than we used to, and not many people actually watch channels anymore. But if you do, and you see all the ads that come on, you realize like we're constantly being bombarded by this story of separation. There's huge industries, they're called advertising, and my apologies. Are you an advertising, Soren? Sorry. But they constantly bombard us with this message of, it's not enough. There's something more you need, you know? You're separate, you know, from the world. But if you had this car, you'd be really good. Or this drug, which then I'll go on to list of like 50 things that could go wrong if you take it, is going to make you really get there, right? So this is a simple form of coming into this body, coming into presence, coming into community. Daido Luri Roshi, who was a wonderful teacher, said, all of Zen's rites and rituals are constantly pointing to the same place, to the realization of no separation between the self and the 10,000 things. So, bowing, you know, is a way to get, one of the things that we have to do is we have to get past our self-centeredness, you know, and because our self-centeredness is part of that dream of separation or the story of separation. I'm a separate self and I need things to, and so we come in and we do these things like bowing, which are not exactly comfortable for us, especially when we first come in and start doing them. Why am I bowing to this person? Or what am I bowing to, you know? Or this makes no sense at all, right? I remember once of being with a Lakota elder, a dear friend, Violet Catches, and we were walking in greasy grass, where the Battle of Little Bighorn was fought. And it was these grass fields, you know, just high grass, dry grass. And she was walking and like running her fingers through the grass and talking to the grass, and talking to the birds, and talking to the wind. And she went to pick some sage, and she asked the plants permission, you know, hey, I'm gonna pick you to use you in some ceremonies for smudging and purifying. Is it okay? And bye, Soren. Geez, bad when the kids leave. And I remember, you know, my logical Western New York-y kind of mind was like, what is this lady up to? Like, this is crazy. She's talking to plants and birds, you know, they don't know what she's saying. But what was interesting to see is at the same time how deeply moved I was by what she was doing, how she was doing it, how she was living, you know, how she was moving in the world, and how different it was from the way that I typically move in the world. Like, oh, geez, these plants, there could be ticks, you know. Don't touch them. And you know, in a way, I think I had a glimpse of the poverty of my own agenda, you know, the way that I live in the world. I saw like, wow, how beautiful is the way that she lives in the world. And my way is like, where's the subway? You know, like, can we go now? So, yeah, in the Zendo, we try to create a sense of being together, moving together, chanting together. You know, we chant these things that are very strange, and also we chant them in ways that aren't really described as beautiful typically by people. Like Kanji Zaibo Sagyo Jinhanyara Mita Jisho Kengo. And people don't, like, you know, start dancing or anything when we chant these things, but we do it, and we do it because we're doing it together, you know, and we do it because that is creating the one body, and revealing that one body to us, to each other, hopefully. And so it's funny when people come into the Zendo, you know, sometimes I feel like the difficult, you know, dad figure who's going, please leave your water bottle outside the Zendo. You don't need to bring it in. I promise you won't die of thirst in the next half hour, you know. Please don't, you know, keep your cushions neat. I remember watching Murio Roshi, our teacher, and how sometimes he would come into the Zendo and the first thing he'd do is arrange everybody's shoes. Because people would come in a rush, in a hurry, and they'd kind of just throw their shoes anywhere. And he would take all the shoes and line them up. And I'd be going to myself like, what is he doing? And now I find myself more and more doing that also, because it creates a certain order, you know, a way of coming together. Simple honoring of each other, of one another, and of the place, you know. So there's a wonderful traditional practice in Zen. Dogen Zenji, who was the teacher who brought, or is one of the teachers who was said to have brought Zen from China to Japan in about the 13th century, 12th century. And Dogen Zenji referred to Menmitsu no Kafu. Menmitsu no Kafu means taking care of the moment in the family style, in the family way. And the family is Soto Zen practitioners. But what it means is just taking care of each thing as you're doing it. Being completely present and dropping off all of the thinking and worrying and you know, opinions and ideas about it, and doing it completely with your whole heart, body, mind. Yeah. And so whether that's offering incense, whether it's doing bows, whether it's meeting somebody for coffee who's having a hard time, you know, whether it's taking care of your mother, whether it's all the things that we do in the day, the idea is to just take care of each moment and not worry about the past moments where you messed up and got it wrong, or the future moments where, ooh, boy, you know, what's going to happen if that happens, and all these things which are just complete fiction. And just being present and taking care of what's in front of you. It's a wonderful, wonderful practice, you know. Zazen is one of the ways that we do it, because we learn a little bit in Zazen, hopefully, not yet for me, but for many people, I've heard it works. That we learn to put a little bit of distance between our thoughts and opinions and ideas and ourselves. You know, we often think that our opinions and ideas are ourselves, but they're just a part of this, you know? So, yeah, I think that's pretty much what I've got to say. I'd like to ask for questions, or, but I know that, is that okay to do, Mark?
Sure.
Okay, good.
We'll have to repeat the question so that the people on Zoom can hear.
I will repeat the questions. Or does anyone on Zoom have a question?
So I often find myself in the need of correcting the environment. Yes, I would definitely feel it's to rearrange and put them straight, right? But I'm just wondering if we all not already be better and living in the moment as it is, the chaos of truth, which is driving crazy. Shouldn't we leave the chaos of the shoes and not correcting the environment? So I wonder how, you know, because you draw the conclusion that by doing this as you must have done, you are honoring the are so chaotic, right? So aren't the shoes gone all over
For you,
of the chaos?
yes. For you, yes. Don't arrange shoes, please. When I do the arranging the shoes, I have no, I think it's not the right way, or that I'm correcting anybody. Yeah. So, and I'm under no illusion that arranging the shoes means that the world is in the order that I want it to be in. Yeah. So if I find myself rigidly arranging people's shoes everywhere I go, then that's something that I need to let go of. Yeah. To be present, because it's not an idea of controlling the environment. Yeah. It's simply an idea of in the Zendo space, there's a certain form and ritual that we do, but at different times in our practice, we would do it. So if someone came in and started arranging shoes because they were obsessive compulsive or something, then the instruction might be, in that case, relax, it's okay. You know, notice also that the world is just so as it's supposed to be without your interference. Does that help? Good luck. And me too. Yes, and then, oh, thank you. Thank you.
Is everyone atheist in Zen practices? And can non-atheists be part of it?
Is everyone atheist in Zen practices, and can non-atheists be part of it? So the quick and easy answer is that I will distinguish Zen Buddhism from Zen in this case. There are Zen teachers who are rabbis, who are Jesuit priests, who are, and they are Zen teachers, because Zen as a form of meditation can happen and it does happen that Catholics can use it and have a sense of connection to God. They might call that one body God. We call it the one body. And for me, I was raised atheist, and now I'm sort of agnostic, I guess. I think that so you can have any religion that you want and practice Zen. Zen Buddhism is slightly different, because in Zen Buddhism, there is the Buddha, right? Who we don't worship as some other worldly being, but whom we are reverent to as an example of how we might be reverent to ourselves and each other, right? And to our own awakened nature, our true nature, what we would say, right? So we don't worship necessarily a higher power, or the higher power is connection and community and being together, is the one body. And it is, the one body is certainly a higher power. It has more arms, you know. If you've ever wanted to prove that, you can try arm wrestling with the one body. There's always one. Did you have a question, or was it just?
So I know there are schedules for when there are events here, and when someone comes, I'd like to know what would one expect to, when you walk into it.
There's a schedule for Zazen, but what can you expect when you come into the door? A surprise. No. So one of the things that you can expect to do is to come in and as I said, try to follow what everyone else is doing, right? You won't be given, typically, we don't give very, very specific instructions until you've come a few times, and then someone might pull you aside and say, hey, the way that, when we come into the Zendo, we bow to our cushion, we turn around, we bow to the room, but you can't do it wrong, right? Even if you don't do those things, it's okay. Nobody will go, oh, that's it, I'm leaving, but the other thing is, it's not like in some places where you go in and you're greeted and it's like, hey, come on in, let's talk for a while, because it's a quiet place, right? So when we come in, there's often just silence. We're getting the Zendo set up, then we go into Zazen. There's not like hey, we're going into Zazen now, like, we don't explain a whole lot. And part of the reason is, I guess, is that that's the way that we were taught, but also that it allows you to find whether it's the right fit for you, whether it feels comfortable for you, without us trying to make it, because certainly what's not going to happen is you come in and decide, what, all you guys are wearing muted colors because you're doing this one body thing, but I'm going to wear like yellow. don't expect that next week we'll all come in wearing yellow. No one will tell you not to wear yellow. But you might start to notice like everybody else is wearing dark colors and kind of not wearing t-shirts with advertising on them or shorts or, I sometimes wear short shorts in the summertime, but then only when the Zendo's empty. Yeah, and you're always encouraged to, and there's always the possibility of afterwards asking a question and saying, hey, what was that about? Why did you guys do that? Or what was hitting people with a stick for? We don't do that too much anymore, but only on family days. Yes, you can definitely sing a song, please.
Are we there yet?
Are you ready?
Are we there yet? Oh, please, oh, please. Are we there yet? Time goes quickly by. Are we there yet? Just sit and breathe.
Thank you. Okay, no questions online? Perfect. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. If you're joining us on Zoom, the room will remain open for a few minutes after our service concludes for informal conversation. Joining us in the meeting house, we invite you to join us in the fellowship room for light refreshments. If you're visiting, please sign our guest book. Someone from our Care and Connection team will be in touch with you. We hope you'll join us next week. Next week, our worship leader will be our Reverend Kimberly Quinn Johnson. If you're visiting for the first time or the 50th time, if you're in agreement with our values, our mission, and our UU principles, we hope you will find a home here. And for our benediction, let's all join together with a hymn we haven't sung very often, number 414. James will sing it through once for us, and then we'll sing it twice ourselves as we leave this friendly place, and then I'll extinguish the flame.
As we leave this friendly place, love give light to every face. May the kindness which we learn light our hearts till we reach. As we leave this friendly place, light to every face. May the kindness which we learn light our hearts till we reach. As we leave this friendly place, love give light to every face. May the kindness which we learn our hearts till we reach.
And now let's extinguish the flame with the words that are in your order of service. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth. The warmth of the community. The light of together again. James has a final song for us, singing your song back to me.
I don't have words that speak your truth. I'm not sure which way is calling to you. never fully know your multitude. I'll never catch your breath or walk in your shoes. And I wish that I could give you all the answers in the world. Sift through all the rocks and tell you where to find the pearl. Can't do that for you. I can promise you, when you fall down, I'll lie beside you, helping you find your way back home. When you forget the goal within you, I'll hold a mirror to your soul. I don't know where your path is leading, but no matter what you do, I'll be singing your song back to you. I can't tell you everything will be fine. Sometimes I can't see reason or rhyme. But I can take your hand and hold it in mine. Look up to find the stars shining through the night. Wish that I could heal your wounds in body, heart. Turn the hands of time, leave the worst of this behind. Can't do that. I can promise you, when you fall down, I'll lie beside you, helping you find your way back home. When you forget the goal within you, I'll hold the mirror. So where your love is leading, no matter what you do, I'll be singing your song back to you. And you don't need me to tell you how to write your melody. Sing it strong, I'll sing along, and add my harmony. When you're stuck on the snow highway, you find a way, and I'll guide you to the music flowing through your life. Rise 1,000 times. When you fall down, I'll lie beside you, helping you find your way back home. When you forget the gold within you, I'll hold a mirror to your soul. I know your path is leading, but no matter what you do, I'll be singing your song back to you.